My husband had an affair and his affair partner got pregnant. She gave birth, left the baby at our doorstep, and then fled the country. I do not want to raise this child. My F53, soon-to-be ex-husband Roger, M47, whom I forgave for his affair, came home with a baby 4 months ago. His girlfriend, F22, could not handle it anymore and brought the baby to him at work and left. To the best of his knowledge, she is in Spain. I allowed him to stay so long as I didn't have to do anything. Anything? Well, about a month ago, Roger had a heart attack. It didn't kill him, Mo raised the pity, but he is very weak and incapable of doing anything for himself. Since he isn't up and about, he cannot care for his child. He also cannot drop off and pick up his son at daycare. I have been helping, but I'm done. My kids are full grown. I shouldn't be having grandkids anytime soon. I do not have any desire to care for a baby. I told Roger that I want a divorce, and I contacted the mother's parents. I know the father through friends. I said they had until Friday to come get their grandchild, or I was calling Child Protective Services. They just left with the baby, but they scolded me for being so cold towards a baby that had done me no harm. I view that child differently. Roger is recovering, and I will be moving out. The house is in his name, but I have never contributed to it. I have the equivalent of 22 years of rent and interest put away, and as per our prenup, my savings are my own. I work and I don't need anything out of this marriage except myself. My kids tried telling me to stay and help their father. I said that they were welcome to come over and help him with cleaning himself and the baby. Both declined what I felt was a fair offer. I do not feel that I am acting badly, however, Roger, our children, his child's family, and a few mutual friends think I am. Perhaps writing this out and seeing the responses will give me clarity. Relevant comments. Commenter. NTA. That child was not your responsibility. Yes, it was innocent, but you're literally not responsible for raising it. You should have divorced Roger long ago. OP. And God forbid something happens, I literally cannot make any decisions regarding medical care or anything. Commenter. NTA. Seriously? The kid is 4 months old. You could not have possibly forgiven anyone for this level of betrayal. If you've been married for decades, it's your house, so get what you're owed. OP. I think the baby is almost a year old. The house was a premarital asset on our prenup. Commenter. I looked at lots of these comments. OP. You are NTA for returning the baby to blood relatives who can look after it. But don't be hard to yourself by abandoning your home without consulting an attorney and making sure you aren't entitled to some of the equity or some of his retirement savings. Don't walk away without getting all that is yours. You said that you have 22 years worth of savings. That's not a lifetime worth. You might need more to be okay, and you should make sure to get it on your way out. OP. I have a little over $1 million in investments. I'll be fine. He paid for everything. I kept all my money. Update 1. I am no longer divorcing Roger. There were complications from his heart attack, and he has passed away. I am conflicted. He was the love of my love, but also a cheating piece of trash. To the best of my knowledge, the mother will not return from Europe. The child is currently with her parents. They asked me what I wanted to do. I recommended adoption. Not that I adopt the child. That they put the child up for adoption. They didn't like that suggestion. Neither did my children. They said I am being cold and cruel. I suggested that since the child was related to them and not to me, that they step up. Neither has accepted that suggestion either. I was the sole beneficiary of Roger's estate, so I imagine lawyers will be involved in getting the child some sort of support. I will pay whatever is ordered by the court out of the estate. I will not pay 1 cent out of my money. That is all I have to say on this matter. Relevant comments. Ages of OP's kids. They are adults. To a now deleted comment. I found out about the affair over a year ago. Nothing about this is convenient. Commenter. Downvoted. So apparently the affair wasn't that much of a problem, as you said you forgave him for that. But after he has a heart attack, you decide to divorce him? It just doesn't add up. OP. I was not responsible for the child. Commenter. True. That doesn't explain the divorce. I mean, you can divide for whatever reason. You do you. To me, however, infidelity seems like a better reason to divorce than having a heart attack. OP. I was not to care for the child at all. It was all on Roger. Can you explain how a bedridden man was to care for an infant? Commenter. I agree you have zero responsibility to the child. However, if your kids did adopt, how would you feel about that, as the baby would then be your grandchild? OP. Adopted grandchildren are great. To another new grandchild, I would do my best to treat them as such. Commenter. Downvoted. Rogers may have omitted the child due to the child not being around when it was written. The child should inherit a portion. The child should be eligible for Social Security survivor benefits. Baby needs a lawyer, ASAP. OP. Rogers will also omitted his 2 adult children. Commenter. You are evil. You wished him dead. Now he is. I hope you at least felt a little remorse for what you said. OP. I don't. He broke me. Editor's note. To avoid confusion, I created a timeline based on OP's listing of events. OP found out about the affair a year ago, let's say May 2023. At the time, she forgave the husband. In January-ish of this year, 4 months from the OG post, the baby was dropped off. Husband promised to take care of the baby. The husband had a heart attack sometimes in April, a month before the OG post. Sometime between May and June of 2024, the husband passed away. Update 2. The girl's parents finally did the right thing and cut her off. I had passed along their contact information to several dozen people online who seemed eager to help. Just an email. I did not reveal their identities or even their names. I believe this pressure convinced them to act. They finally got the clue that I would in no way take any responsibility for the child. Between her parents no longer funding her and the current climate in Spain against visitors, the child's mother has returned. I have washed my hands of the entire situation, except for one thing. I have spoken with the lawyers and I will be splitting some of Roger's estate into 3 parts for the children. My children will get theirs immediately as they are adults. The child's money will be going into a trust with his brother and sister as the trustees. This will take some doing, and as such will mean more money goes to the lawyers. Perhaps Shakespeare was correct with regards to that profession. Editor's note. Link to that quote and explanation here. OOP clarified in several comments that she was joking. My children are now less enthusiastic about their young sibling, but that is neither here nor there. They were the ones who insisted I involve myself. If there is anything left when I pass, they can split that between themselves, as I will not be leaving anything to that child. Thank you all for your help in my reaching clarity. I was letting my anger cloud my judgment and sense of fairness. Relevant comments. Commenter. I'm glad this is over. The kid deserves better than he's gotten. Not that he was your responsibility in any way. I do like that you used concerned Redditors for assistance. OP. Yes. That's one of the reasons I felt it was apt to post one last time. I appreciate that people were willing to step in to help. Commenter. They were paying her to stay away from this shit show? Why? OP. Not for me to say. To another about why she returned and the climate in Spain being against visitors. I was guessing as to the motivation for her return. All I know for certain is that her parents stopped paying her bills. Commenter. Nice. You got to a resolution. I wish it didn't have to be so fucked up from the beginning for you. But I'm happy there's an end now. Best wishes going forward, OP. OP. If I'm to be honest, I'm happiest for the child. He is with his mother and grandparents. And Spain is terribly hot in the summer anyway, so she isn't missing much. Commenter. So the Sibs wanted you to do the right thing to a kid that shares no blood with you. But them taking in their blood relative wasn't an option for either of them? And then have the gall to get mad their inheritance gets split 3 ways? OP. There was no inheritance. I was the sole beneficiary of Roger's estate. I just decided to help my children before I'm too old to watch them get any benefit from the money. And the child deserves a share. It's not his fault that his father was a philanderer and his mother is callow. Commenter. I say inheritance because it's money they wouldn't have had otherwise. But them getting mad that you included their sibling when it comes to money, but not willing to step up to care for their sibling, but expecting you to care for someone who is a constant reminder of your husband's betrayal, is telling. If anyone has a right to be mad, it's you. OP. I'm past anger. I am at acceptance. Commenter. Was there ever a DNA test done to conclusively prove paternity? Before setting up the trust, it might be wise to do so. OP. Yes. I insisted on one when the child first came to live with Roger. Commenter. It's not over. She'll sue his estate for child support. OP. It will come out of the child's trust if she succeeds. Update 3. I thought I had washed my hands of this entire mess, but it seems the universe had other plans. A few weeks after my last update, I received a call from the lawyer handling Roger's estate. Apparently, there was a complication with the trust one was setting up for Roger's child. The child's mother, who had reappeared from Spain, decided to contest the terms of the trust, claiming it was unfair and insufficient for her son's needs. She hired a lawyer and was pushing for more immediate control over the funds. In the midst of dealing with this legal wrangling, I got another unexpected visitor, Roger's former girlfriend herself. She showed up at my doorstep, looking worn out and desperate. She claimed she had nowhere else to go, and that her parents had completely cut her off financially. She begged me to reconsider my stance and help her and the baby out. It was a surreal moment, seeing the woman who had blown up my life standing there pleading for help. I told her flat out that I had no intention of supporting her or the child, but I would continue with the legal process to ensure the child had financial stability. She didn't take it well, to say the least. She threatened to go to the media with her story if I didn't comply, hoping to shame me into submission. Things escalated quickly from there. The next morning, my name was plastered all over social media with a sob story about how a heartless widow was abandoning her late husband's child. I was furious, but I refused to engage in a public battle. Instead, I focused on my next move, a countersuit for defamation. My lawyer assured me we had a solid case, given the documentation and witnesses I had. However, the drama didn't stop there. My adult children, who had been passive observers until now, were suddenly thrust into the spotlight. They were harassed online and in person, pressured to take a stance on the matter. It was a nightmare for them, and they turned to me for guidance. I decided it was time to bring everyone together and hash things out once and for all. I invited my children, Roger's girlfriend, and her parents to a mediated meeting with our lawyers present. It was tense, to say the least. The girlfriend's parents were furious with her for dragging the family's name through the mud, and my children were caught between their loyalty to me and their empathy for their half-sibling. During the meeting, the girlfriend finally broke down and admitted she was overwhelmed and desperate. She confessed that her trip to Spain had been a misguided attempt to escape her responsibilities, but she realized now that she couldn't run away from her problems. She apologized to everyone for her actions and agreed to drop her demands if we could come to a reasonable arrangement. We managed to reach a tentative agreement. The trust for the child would remain, but with some adjustments to ensure transparency and fairness. The girlfriend would have supervised access to the funds for the child's immediate needs, with regular audits to prevent misuse. In return, she would issue a public apology and retract her defamatory statements. It's not a perfect solution, but it's a step towards restoring some semblance of normalcy. As for me, I'm still moving forward with my plans to leave and start fresh. I found a cozy little place in a different city and will be relocating soon. My children are slowly coming to terms with everything, and I hope they can build a relationship with their half-sibling in the future, free from the chaos of the past year. This chapter of my life has been a roller coaster, and I'm ready to get off the ride. Thank you to everyone who has offered support and advice along the way. I don't know what the future holds, but I'm hopeful that the worst is behind us. Relevant comments. Commenter. Wow, I can't believe she had the nerve to go public with her story. Glad you're standing your ground. OP. It was definitely a shock, but I'm not letting it derail my plans. The truth always comes out in the end. Commenter. Do you think your kids will ever have a relationship with their half-sibling? OP. I hope so. They need time to process everything, but I believe they can find a way to connect without all the drama. Update 4. So much for a quiet life. I never thought I'd be back here so soon, but the universe just doesn't seem to want to give me a break. Here we go again. A month into my new life in a different city, I started to settle down. I had a cozy apartment, a new job, and I was making friends. Things were finally looking up. But then, out of the blue, I got a call from an unknown number. It was Roger's girlfriend, let's call her Claire, and she was crying hysterically. My first instinct was to hang up, but something in her voice made me listen. Claire was at her wit's end. Apparently, the agreement we had reached was not enough to cover all of the child's needs, or at least that's what she claimed. She was struggling with the baby's medical expenses, which were higher than anticipated, and the audits on the trust funds were delaying access to the money she needed. She begged me to help her find a more permanent solution, or at least to listen to her situation. Reluctantly, I agreed to meet her. We met at a neutral location, a small cafe halfway between our cities. Claire looked exhausted and thinner than I remembered. She explained that the baby's health was more fragile than she had initially let on. He had been diagnosed with a chronic condition that required ongoing treatment and frequent medical visits. The trust fund, while helpful, was not designed to handle such immediate and consistent financial strain. I felt a pang of sympathy but also frustration. This was not supposed to be my problem, but there I was, sitting across from the woman who had destroyed my marriage, trying to figure out how to help her child. A child who, through no fault of his own, was now part of this mess. I told her I needed time to think and would get back to her. Back home, I mulled over the situation. I knew I couldn't turn my back on the child, but I also didn't want to be dragged back into a life of constant chaos. I decided to consult my lawyer and see what could be done legally and efficiently. After a few days of back and forth with my lawyer, we came up with a plan. We would petition the court to revise the trust to allow for emergency medical expenses to be accessed more easily, and we would also look into setting up a dedicated medical fund for the child. This would require Claire to provide detailed medical documentation, and the fund would be strictly controlled to ensure it was only used for legitimate medical needs. When I presented this plan to Claire, she was relieved but also wary. She feared the bureaucracy would still delay access to funds in emergencies. I assured her that the revised trust would be more flexible, and the medical fund would have provisions for quicker disbursement in urgent situations. She agreed, and we began the process. During this time, my children, who had been relatively quiet since the last update, started reaching out more. They wanted to be kept in the loop about their half-brother's condition and what steps were being taken. I think the reality of having a sick sibling hit them hard, and they felt a sense of responsibility, even if they weren't sure how to act on it. It wasn't long before my children and Claire started communicating directly. At first, it was just updates and information sharing, but gradually they began to form a tentative relationship. They even visited her and the baby a few times, bringing supplies and helping out where they could. It was strange seeing them interact with Claire, but I was proud of them for stepping up in a way I hadn't expected. Meanwhile, the legal process was dragging on, as it always does. Weeks turned into months, and I was in constant communication with lawyers, doctors, and accountants. My new job was understanding, but I could sense their patience wearing thin. I felt like I was juggling too many balls, and I was bound to drop one eventually. And then it happened. Just when I thought I had a handle on things, I got another curveball. Claire called me in the middle of the night, frantic. The baby had taken a turn for the worse and was in the hospital. She needed immediate funds to cover the treatment, and the trust's latest audit had delayed access once again. She was desperate and had no one else to turn to. I rushed to the hospital, calling my lawyer on the way to see if we could expedite the process somehow. It was a nightmare. The baby was in the ICU, hooked up to machines, and Claire was a wreck. My children were already there, having gotten the call before me. We all gathered in the waiting room, a strange, disjointed family brought together by crisis. In the end, the immediate funds were secured through a combination of personal loans and expedited legal maneuvers. The baby stabilized, but it was a close call. Too close. It was clear that the current system wasn't working, and something had to change. We held another meeting, this time with a more permanent solution in mind. We decided to set up a comprehensive medical care fund with faster access provisions and a dedicated manager to oversee disbursements. This would require more upfront capital, but it was the only way to ensure the child got the care he needed without constant delays and red tape. I put in a significant portion of my own money, not because I felt obligated, but because it was the right thing to do. Claire's parents, guilt-stricken over their previous abandonment, also contributed. My children pitched in what they could, and we even set up a crowdfunding campaign that surprisingly garnered a lot of support. Things have calmed down somewhat since then. The baby is getting the care he needs, and the new fund is working well. Claire and my children have developed a cooperative relationship, and while it's not perfect, it's functional. I've even started to feel a cautious sense of hope that maybe, just maybe, things might settle into a new normal. As for me, I'm still navigating this unexpected path. It's not the life I envisioned, but it's the one I have now. And despite everything, I'm starting to find a strange sense of peace in the midst of the chaos. Thanks again for all your support and advice. I'll keep you posted if anything changes, but for now, I'm signing off. Relevant comments. Commenter. Wow. I'm amazed at how you've handled everything. OP. It's incredible how you're still helping despite everything. OP. Thank you. It hasn't been easy, but I couldn't turn my back on an innocent child. I just hope we can all move forward from here. Commenter. Your kids really stepped up. Do you think they'll stay involved long-term? OP. I hope so. They seem committed to being there for their half-brother. It's brought us all closer in a strange way.